Book 3, Part 2 of Herodotus' Histories. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Histories, Volume 1 by Herodotus of Halicarnassus, translated by A. D. Godley. Book 3, Part 2, Parts 20 to 38. When the fish-eaters arrived from Elephantine at Cambyses' summons, he sent them to Ethiopia, with orders what to say, and bearing as gifts a red cloak and a twisted gold necklace and bracelets, and an alabaster box of incense and an earthenware jar of palm wine. These Ethiopians, to whom Cambyses sent them, are said to be the tallest and most handsome of all men. Their way of choosing kings is different from that of all others, as it is said are all their laws. They consider that man worthy to be their king whom they judge to be tallest and to have strength proportional to his stature. When the fish-eaters arrived among these men, they gave the gifts to their king, and said, Cambyses, the king of the Persians, wishing to become your friend and ally, sent us with orders to address ourselves to you, and he offers you as gifts these things which he enjoys using himself. But the Ethiopian, perceiving that they had come as spies, spoke thus to them: It is not because he values my friendship that the Persian king sends you with gifts, nor do you speak the truth, for you have come to spy on my realm. Nor is that man just, for were he just he would not have coveted a land other than his own, nor would he try to lead into slavery men by whom he has not been injured. Now give him this bow and this message: The king of the Ethiopians advises the king of the Persians to bring overwhelming odds to attack the long-lived Ethiopians when the Persians can draw a bow of this length as easily as I do, but until then to thank the gods who do not incite the sons of the Ethiopians to add other land to their own. So speaking, he unstrung the bow and gave it to the men who had come. Then, taking the red cloak, he asked what it was and how it was made, and when the fish-eaters told him the truth about the colour and the process of dyeing, he said that both the men and their garments were full of deceit. Next he inquired about the twisted gold necklace and the bracelets, and when the fish-eaters told him how they were made, the king smiled, and thinking them to be fetters, said, We have stronger chains than these. Thirdly he inquired about the incense, and when they described making and applying it, he made the same reply as about the cloak. But when he came to the wine and asked about its making, he was vastly pleased with the drink, and asked further what food their king ate, and what was the greatest age to which a Persian lived. They told him their king ate bread, showing him how wheat grew, and said that the full age to which a man might hope to live was 80 years. Then, said the Ethiopian, it was no wonder that they lived so few years if they ate dung. They would not even have been able to live that many unless they were refreshed by the drink, signifying to the fish-eaters the wine, for in this, he said, the Persians excelled the Ethiopians. The fish-eaters then in turn asking of the Ethiopian length of life and diet, he said that most of them attained to 120 years, and some even to more. Their food was boiled meat, and their drink milk. The spies showed wonder at the tale of years, whereupon he led them, it is said, to a spring, by washing in which they grew sleeker, as though it were of oil, and it smelled of violets. So light, the spies said, was this water, that nothing would float on it, neither wood nor anything lighter than wood, but all sank to the bottom. If this water is truly such as they say, it is likely that their constant use of it makes the people long-lived. When they left the spring, the king led them to a prison where all the men were bound with fetters of gold. Among these Ethiopians there is nothing so scarce and so precious as bronze. Then, having seen the prison, they saw what is called the Table of the Sun. Last after this they viewed the Ethiopian coffins. These are said to be made of alabaster, as I shall describe. They cause the dead body to shrink, either as the Egyptians do or in some other way, then cover it with gypsum and paint it all as far as possible in the likeness of the living man. Then they set it within a hollow pillar of alabaster, which they dig in abundance from the ground, and it is easily worked. The body can be seen in the pillar through the alabaster, no evil stench nor anything unpleasant proceeding from it, and showing clearly all its parts, as if it were the man himself. The nearest of kin keep the pillar in their houses for a year, giving it of the first fruits and offering it sacrifices, after which they bring the pillars out and set them round about the city. Having seen everything, the spies departed again. When they reported all this, Cambyses was angry and marched at once against the Ethiopians, neither giving directions for any provision of food, nor considering that he was about to lead his army to the ends of the earth, being not right in his mind, but mad. However, he marched at once on hearing from the fish-eaters, ordering the Greeks who were with him to await him where they were, and taking with him all his land army. When he came in his march to Thebes, he detached about 50,000 men from his army, and directed them to enslave the Ammonians and burn the oracle of Zeus, and he himself went on towards Ethiopia with the rest of his host. But before his army had accomplished the fifth part of their journey, they had come to an end of all there was in the way of provision, and after the food was gone, they ate the beasts of burden until there was none of these left either. Now had Cambyses, when he perceived this, changed his mind and led his army back again, he would have been a wise man at last after his first fault, but as it was he went ever forward, taking account of nothing. While his soldiers could get anything from the earth, they kept themselves alive by eating grass, but when they came to the sandy desert, some did a terrible thing, taking by lot one man out of 10 and eating him. Hearing this, Cambyses feared their becoming cannibals, and so gave up his expedition against the Ethiopians and marched back to Thebes, with the loss of many of his army. From Thebes he came down to Memphis and sent the Greeks to sail away. So fared the expedition against Ethiopia. As for those who were sent to march against the Ammonians, they set out and journeyed from Thebes with guides, and it is known that they came to the city of Oasis, inhabited by Samians said to be of the Escreonian tribe. 7 days' march from Thebes across sandy desert, this place is called in the Greek language Islands of the Blessed. Thus far, it is said, the army came. After that, except for the Ammonians themselves and those who heard from them, no man can say anything of them, for they neither reached the Ammonians nor returned back. But this is what the Ammonians themselves say. When the Persians were crossing the sand from Oasis to attack them, and were about midway between their country and Oasis, while they were breakfasting, a great and violent south wind arose, which buried them in the masses of sand which it bore, and so they disappeared from sight. Such is the Ammonian tale about this army. When Cambyses was back at Memphis, there appeared in Egypt that Apis whom the Greeks call Epiphas, at whose epiphany the Egyptians put on their best clothing and held a festival. Seeing the Egyptians so doing, Cambyses was fully persuaded that these signs of joy were for his misfortunes, and summoned the rulers of Memphis. When they came before him, he asked them why the Egyptians behaved so at the moment he returned with so many of his army lost, though they had done nothing like it when he was before at Memphis. The rulers told him that a god, wont to appear after long intervals of time, had now appeared to them, and that all Egypt rejoiced and made holiday whenever he so appeared. At this Cambyses said that they lied, and he punished them with death for their lie. Having put them to death, he next summoned the priests before him. When they gave him the same account, he said that if a tame god had come to the Egyptians he would know it, and with no more words he bade the priests bring Apis. So they went to fetch and bring him. This Apis or Epiphas is a calf born of a cow that can never conceive again. By what the Egyptians say, the cow is made pregnant by a light from heaven, and thereafter gives birth to Apis. The marks of this calf called Apis are these: he is black, and has on his forehead a 3-cornered white spot, and the likeness of an eagle on his back. The hairs of the tail are double, and there is a knot under the tongue. When the priests led Apis in, Cambyses, for he was all but mad, drew his dagger, and meaning to stab the calf in the belly, struck the thigh. Then laughing, he said to the priests, Simpletons, are these your gods, creatures of flesh and blood that can feel weapons of iron? That is a god worthy of the Egyptians. But for you, you shall suffer for making me your laughing stock." So saying, he bade those whose business it was to scourge the priests well, and to kill any other Egyptian whom they found holiday making. So the Egyptian festival ended, and the priests were punished, and Apis lay in the temple and died of the wound in the thigh. When he was dead of the wound, the priests buried him without Cambyses' knowledge. But Cambyses, the Egyptians say, owing to this wrongful act, immediately went mad, although even before he had not been sensible. His first evil act was to destroy his full brother Smerdis, whom he had sent away from Egypt to Persia out of jealousy, because Smerdis alone could draw the bow brought from the Ethiopian by the fish eaters as far as 2 fingerbreadths, but no other Persian could draw it. Smerdis having gone to Persia, Cambyses saw in a dream a vision, in which it seemed to him that a messenger came from Persia and told him that Smerdis sitting on the royal throne touched heaven with his head. Fearing therefore for himself, lest his brother might slay him and so be king, he sent Prothospes, the most trusted of his Persians, to Persia to kill him. Prothospes went up to Susa and killed Smerdis. Some say that he took Smerdis out hunting, others that he brought him to the Red Sea and there drowned him. This, they say, was the first of Cambyses' evil acts. Next he destroyed his full sister, who had come with him to Egypt and whom he had taken to wife. He married her in this way, for before this it had by no means been customary for Persians to marry their sisters. Cambyses was infatuated with one of his sisters, and when he wanted to marry her, because his intention was contrary to usage, he summoned the royal judges and inquired whether there were any law enjoining one that so desired to marry his sister. These royal judges are men chosen out from the Persians to function until they die or are detected in some injustice. It is they who decide suits in Persia and interpret the laws of the land. All matters are referred to them. These then replied to Cambyses with an answer which was both just and prudent, namely that they could find no law enjoining a brother to marry his sister, but that they had found a law permitting the king of Persia to do whatever he liked. Thus, although they feared Cambyses, they did not break the law, and to save themselves from death for keeping it, they found another law abetting one who wished to marry sisters. So Cambyses married the object of his desire, yet not long afterwards he took another sister as well. It was the younger of these who had come with him to Egypt, and whom he now killed. There are 2 tales of her death, as there are of the death of Smerdis. The Greeks say that Cambyses had set a lion cub to fight a puppy, and that this woman was watching too, and that as the puppy was losing, its brother broke its leash and came to help, and the 2 dogs together got the better of the cub. Cambyses, they say, was pleased with the sight, but the woman wept as she sat by. Cambyses, perceiving it, asked why she wept, and she said that when she saw the puppy help its brother she had wept recalling Smerdis, and knowing that there would be no avenger for him. For saying this, according to the Greek story, she was killed by Cambyses. But the Egyptian tale is that as the 2 sat at table the woman took a lettuce and plucked off its leaves, then asked her husband whether he preferred the look of it with or without leaves. "With the leaves," he said, whereupon she answered, "Yet you have stripped Cyrus' house as bare as this lettuce." Angered at this, they say, he sprang upon her, who was great with child, and she miscarried and died of the hurt he gave her. Such were Cambyses' mad acts to his own household. Whether they were done because of Apis, or grew from some of the many troubles that are wont to beset man, for indeed he is said to have been afflicted from his birth with that grievous disease which some call sacred, it is not unlikely then that when his body was grievously afflicted his mind too should be diseased. I will now relate his mad dealings with the rest of Persia. He said, as they report, to Prothospes, whom he held in particular honour, who brought him all his messages, whose son held the very honourable office of Cambyses' cupbearer, thus, I say, he spoke to Prothospes: "What manner of man, Prothospes, do the Persians think me to be, and how do they speak of me? "Sire," said Prosaspis, "for all else they greatly praise you, but they say that you love wine too well." So he reported of the Persians. The king angrily replied "If the Persians now say that it is my fondness for wine that drives me to frenzy and madness, then it would seem that their former saying also was a lie. For it is said that before this, while some Persians and Croesus were sitting with him, Cambyses asked what manner of man they thought him to be in comparison with Cyrus his father, and they answered, 'Cambyses was the better man, for he had all of Cyrus' possessions, and had won Egypt and the sea besides.' So said the Persians, but Croesus, who was present and was dissatisfied with their judgment, spoke thus to Cambyses: 'To me, son of Cyrus, you do not seem to be the equal of your father, for you have as yet no son such as he left after him in you.' This pleased Cambyses, and he praised Croesus' judgment. Remembering this then, he said to Prosaspis in his anger, 'Judge then if the Persians speak the truth, or rather are themselves out of their minds when they speak of me so. Yonder stands your son in the porch. Now if I shoot and pierce his heart, that will prove the Persians to be wrong. If I miss, then say that they are right, and that I am out of my senses.' So saying, he strung his bow and hit the boy, and gave orders to open the fallen body and examine the wound. And the arrow being found in the heart, Cambyses laughed in great glee, and said to the boy's father, 'It is plain, Prosaspis, that I am in my right mind, and the Persians mad. Now tell me, what man in the world did you ever see that shot so true to the mark?' Prosaspis, it is said, replied, for he saw that Cambyses was mad, and he feared for his own life, 'Master, I think that not even the god himself could shoot so true.' Thus did Cambyses then. At another time he took 12 Persians, equal to the noblest in the land, convicted them of some minor offence, and buried them alive up to the neck. For these acts Croesus the Lydian thought fit to take him to task, and addressed him thus: 'Sire, do not sacrifice everything to youth and temper, but restrain and control yourself. Prudence is a good thing, forethought is wise. But you kill men of your own country whom you have convicted of some minor offence, and you kill boys. If you do so often, beware lest the Persians revolt from you. As for me, your father Cyrus earnestly begged me to counsel you, and to give you such advice as I think to be good.' Croesus gave him this counsel out of good will, but Cambyses answered, 'It is very well that you should even dare to counsel me, you who governed your own country so well, and gave fine advice to my father, telling him when the Masagatai were willing to cross over into our lands, to pass the Araxes and attack them. Thus you worked your own ruin by misgoverning your country and Cyrus, who trusted you. But you shall regret it. I have long waited for an occasion to deal with you.' With that Cambyses took his bow to shoot him dead, but Croesus leapt up and ran out, and Cambyses, being unable to shoot him, ordered his attendants to catch and kill him. They, knowing Cambyses' mood, hid Croesus, intending to reveal him and receive gifts for saving his life if Cambyses should repent and ask for Croesus, but if he should not repent nor wish Croesus back, then to kill the Lydian. Not long after this Cambyses did wish Croesus back, and the attendants, understanding this, told him that Croesus was alive still. Cambyses said that he was glad of it, but that they, who had saved Croesus, should not escape with impunity, but be killed, and this was done. Cambyses committed many such mad acts against the Persians and his allies. He stayed at Memphis, and there opened ancient coffins and examined the dead bodies. Thus, too, he entered the temple of Hephaestus and jeered at the image there. This image of Hephaestus is most like the Phoenician Potichi, whom the Phoenicians carry on the prows of their triremes. I will describe it for anyone who has not seen these figures. It is the likeness of a dwarf. Also he entered the temple of the Kabiri, into which no one may enter save the priest. The images here he even burnt, with bitter mockery. These also are like the images of Hephaestus, and are said to be his sons. I hold it then in every way proved that Cambyses was quite insane, or he would never have set himself to deride religion and custom. For if it were proposed to all nations to choose which seemed best of all customs, each after examination would place its own first, so well is each convinced that its own are by far the best. It is not, therefore, to be supposed that any one except a madman would turn such things to ridicule. I will give this one proof among many from which it may be inferred that all men hold this belief about their customs. When Darius was king, he summoned the Greeks who were with him and asked them for what price they would eat their fathers' dead bodies. They answered that there was no price for which they would do it. Then Darius summoned those Indians who are called Calatii, who eat their parents, and asked them, the Greeks being present and understanding through interpreters what was said, what would make them willing to burn their fathers at death. The Indians cried aloud that he should not speak of so horrid an act. So firmly rooted are these beliefs, and it is, I think, rightly said in Pindar's poem that custom is lord of all. End of Book 3, Part 2.